I played through 100 days of GregTech New Horizon. With over 3,000 quests and taking upwards of 8,000 hours to complete, it is easily one of Minecraft's longest mod packs, and I wanted to take just a small dip into it by doing 100 days of it. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Day 0 started how most modded Minecraft playthroughs start. I kind of just roamed around for a bit, checked the quest book, messed with config. I saw a part in the quest book that said I would need to give myself chunk loaders at some point, but I just ignored that for now. I ended up making a dirt shack for the night after getting some resources and made our first crafting table, and then I basically just spent the rest of the night looking at quests. Day 1 started with this little creeper creeping around outside the house, and then me getting more flint for flint tools and looking for a base spot basically. I ended up making another dirt shack for the night and did more quests while I waited for it to turn day. On day 2, I died for the first time while taking down the second dirt shack. I ended up spending the rest of the day killing animals and found in a quest that I had to use a special tool or else they might blow up when they die. I never ended up using the tools the rest of the run. I was basically living off food from quest rewards at this point, so that's why I was stockpiling animal drops. Day 3, I found the official base spot I wanted to build in for the rest of the playthrough. I ended up just digging out a little hole in the mountain and moving everything over to it. Seemed easy as a start. Would expand it later, you know, just wanted a little place to hide from the mobs at night. On the morning of day 4, I ended up making a bed. It was a big moment. It was basically the end of the first quest page, basically, and then immediately went outside and got attacked. This little Gatling skeleton made me run around trees for a bit, and it was overall struggle. Then I just made a little farm and went to set our spawn at the bed. On day 5, I decided that I wanted to extend the base a bunch before I went too far in the quest line. So I spent the entire day harvesting this huge great wood tree since it looked cool and I wanted to use its wood. I also realized I need a coke oven to get charcoal and coal to get torches. So getting torches was quite a bit of ways for now, actually. Day 6 led strong with a creeper I didn't even notice. And then I just left the hole to do with later in the day. I didn't really feel like anything with it yet, so I just explored a little bit. Found this little building with a cauldron in it and stole that. Used it to make dough for bread later. Then I filled in the creeper hole. I laid down a foundation in quotation marks for the base and then made bread so that we had some new food. I would be eating a lot of bread this playthrough. I spent day 7 building onto the house. Just wanted to get it coming along so I could actually continue on quest. Made mud armor. That was a little weird. Didn't really need it. I felt like it was probably too bad to really use. I still didn't really have torches, so I couldn't really do anything outside during the night. So if I needed to do something, I'd just sleep or do quests at night. This night, though, when I was looking through the quest, I found an item called a hunger axe, which completely gets rid of hunger, but needs a lot of stuff. But that is definitely one of the big goals I have. Day 8 was basically just a bunch of house building, just straight out. That's literally all I did the entire day. But it's coming along nice, you know. Got nice floors, nice walls, all the nice stuff in. Day 9, I basically just explored around the area around the house. Wanted to see what was going on, collected a bit more resources while I was doing it. This is the point where food started becoming a issue since I wasn't doing quests anymore and I didn't really have a solution. So I just planted blueberry bushes outside the base and hoped for the best. Day 10 started with me making little dirt platforms for the special tree saplings I got. They seemed important at the time, so I didn't really question it. I kind of just wanted them to have their own little areas. Then I made a little pit for chickens to throw their eggs into, maybe get some chickens. And then I made another pit for sheep. This would help a little bit with the food problem over the next few days. and then I just started harvesting other materials for quests later. Days 11 through 13 were all spent exploring. I found some quicksand, this pretty little purple biome, looked pretty nice. And then right as I got back, I died to a direwolf not far behind the base. So on the morning of day 14, I went to go get my stuff back, came back to the base, planted more things in the garden, and then made some sandwiches. Early on in day 15, I noticed a village on my map that was close to the base that I hadn't seen, so I went over there to see what was going on. And to steal things, obviously. I found some nice stuff, a nice sword, some nice armor. Ran into this weird trapdoor that wasn't really tangible, I guess. Couldn't really interact with it. And then at the end of the day, I found coal, which was a godsend because I could finally make some torches to light up the base and make it a bit safer. However, when I went home on day 16, I promptly forgot to make torches. And I ended up just leaving the base again to go explore some more in a different direction. I did find an even bigger village that I could stay in right before the night hit, so that was convenient. I found a tinker's smelter, whatever you call it, in the village the next day, and I knew I'd come back for it at some point because I definitely wanted one of those when I saw that it was in the mod pack. And then I took a weird path home and ran through some massive mountains that had a ton of ore on it, but I couldn't really do anything with the ore yet, so I didn't grab any of it. I ended up having to stay in a dirt box for the night because I could not make it back to the base before night hit. So that was a little inconvenient, but not too much work. When I got back to the base on day 18, I finally started putting down torches around the base using the coal I got, so I could actually walk around at night without fear of being attacked by things that I couldn't really handle in big numbers. I also ended up killing a first Enderman this day. The Endermen were really rare this time around, it felt like, which kind of sucked because I needed it to start a quest line in the book. There we go. Awesome. Hell yeah. On day 19, I decided to adventure out again. I was looking for bamboo specifically this time though, because it was the last thing I needed for the first page of the quest book. At first I realized I forgot my bed, so I went back to go get it so I could not be roaming around in the middle of the night, and then got back to searching. Day 20 was obviously spent exploring some more. I found a big redwood forest that was pretty cool, and then as I was running through it, I just got randomly hit by something. It was weird. And then right before night hit again, I managed to find another big town. It was pretty convenient. Day 21 started with me stealing a crap ton of stuff from the town and then continuing on our little adventure. I found this awesome cherry blossom biome and climbed the biggest mountain I've ever seen in Minecraft, period. Trying to look over the horizon, but not really seeing anything due to the render fog. And then killing another Enderman before continuing on our travels. Day 22 started with me looking at and seeing how far I had traveled so far, which was quite a ways, and then basically just traveling through a desert-like biome and then a real desert. Not much else happened that day. It was basically just more exploring. On day 23 though, I decided to turn around. I didn't really feel like I would find bamboo anytime soon, and it wasn't that important to finish the first page, and I'd rather just continue down the quest lines than keep like delaying it, I guess. I did find this really awesome mushroom forest on the way back and found an enemy or a mob I haven't seen in years. Oh, it's them. I haven't seen one of these in so long, dude. I just never find mushroom islands anymore. Yes, dude. How we doing? Does it still work on you guys? It does. Awesome. I love you. Awesome. I'd love to build something here, but I know just from like the kind of pack that GregTech is this, we're just gonna end up deforesting the whole thing anyway, so maybe we won't build over here for anything. Day 24 was literally just more traveling. Nothing interesting happened this day. Let's move on to day 25, where I found another huge village. This one wasn't surrounded by walls, but it had quite a good bit of good stuff. There was some tinker stuff, there was some bombcraft stuff, all sorts of stuff that I could use in the future. And I ended up staying there for the night. On day 26, I ran into quite the interesting tree before eventually making it back to base and resetting my spawn at that bed. On day 27, I got back to the quest that I needed to do. Since I was basically done with the first page now, I ended up deciding to dig out more of the lower area behind the base and gather resources. That way I could be a bit more prepared whenever I started the next page of quests. Oh, and I had a little run-in with a skeleton in the base. When I was doing quests, I ended up finding out that paper was just awful to craft, basically. You needed to crush up wood and then use water to make that wood pulp into paper. It wasn't like hard, but it was annoying to have to be by the water to craft paper. I didn't know how much I would need, so luckily at the moment I just needed a little bit to do what I needed to do. Day 29 was basically all Tinker's stuff. I spent the entire day crafting the tables and getting the stuff I needed to craft tools, and then when I wasn't doing that, I was looking at the menus to understand how to use Tinkers properly, and or looking at other quests. On day 30, I continued to look at Tinker's stuff and decided to make myself a bow, which wasn't that bad craft. It didn't really get used, though, the entire time after this, except like once, so probably a bit of a waste, but it's okay. Day 31 was basically spent corralling animals, like half the day. I just wanted to get more of every kind of animal I had. So I just went around and got some cows, another chicken, so I could actually have a breeding pair. And then I went to look for cows to kill since I wanted proper leather. Oh yeah, I also started cooking bricks for the coke oven to make charcoal. Day 32 started with me mining a little bit more of the lower area in the base out, just expanding it a little bit, and then clearing some areas outside out to make room for a new building I wanted to make, which was going to be like our little farm area, and then working on some pathways before that. So that's what I would spend the next few days doing from about day 33 to day 40. I would spend doing that. It was a slow build, it took a while. I kept getting distracted by other little tasks and other oddities. Oh yeah, I also got jump scared by a creeper one of these days. Oh crap. Oh. And I did finish the coke oven, but beyond that, it was basically just farm work. The only other thing to note is that on day 39, I was basically done, so I decided I wanted to extend those animal pens further and just kind of give them a huge area to work with, so I did that. And then I had a quest reward for a tree sapling, and I chose the sacred tree because it sounded the most interesting. At the start of day 41, I finally decided to give myself admin anchors like the game wanted me to do at the start of the world, you know, the chunk loaders I talked about earlier. So I just went ahead and got that out of the way. The Sacred Oak grew, which was very quick, and it was so much bigger than I thought. I was kind of deciding whether or not to cut it down, but I ended up going against it. And then I kind of just went on to do some more quests, saw these little gloves that I would need to hold things like lava buckets, which I would be needing. So I started working towards those, among other things. And then the next day, I started working towards a tinker's kiln using the sand and gravel and clay I got. I would start working towards grout. That's basically all I did for day 42 was harvest materials the whole day. And then on day 43, I had our first harvest of the farm. Grout's recipe was kind of annoying. It needed water buckets like the paper from earlier, so I spent basically the entire night and then the start of day 44 running back and forth getting water to make more grout to make bricks for the smeltery. So on day 45, I was mining out the lower area, waiting for the bricks to smelt for the smeltery, and harvested the plants again and investigated more of the stuff that I could do on the tinker's table, and realized that I could use slime to make a really, really, really durable pickaxe. So that's what I decided to do for day 46. I went on a little quest to one of the slime islands to go get slime. It wasn't that far, it was just a little walks away. There was a huge oil field on the way there. Kind of cool to see, would probably need it later. And once I got there, I realized that the trees would need to be replanted to get the blue slime balls pretty easy. Day 47 was me basically just traveling back. I ended up finding this little structure that would be the bane of my existence for the next few days. As I got greedy, went in, died, had to run all the way back, brought my bed back so I could keep running back in, and kept dying over and over and over and over again. It was probably the most frustrating part of this playthrough. I just wasn't making very good decisions. So I just kept throwing myself out thinking things would change. They do not change. So that's what day 47, 48, 49, and the very, very start of 50 were all spent doing was this one little place, because I had to keep sleeping so things wouldn't spawn and kill me right as I respawned. It was a whole mess. I'd like to take a moment to say, if you've liked this video so far, to please like and subscribe. I'm trying to hit 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year. It'd really help me out, but let's get right back to it. At the start of day 51, I made a new heart container thing. I think it was an extra life, but it didn't work because I wasn't in hardcore, so then I planted some slime trees, and while I waited for them to grow, I started looking into the iron and copper quest and how to find ore, and it turned out to be extremely confusing. On day 52, I bred some more animals, the slime trees grew, so I had enough slime balls now to make the slime crystal to make a slime tool rod. However, I didn't see this when I was looking at it. I actually can't make it. I need a better kind of furnace. I need a machine or a steam version, and I can't get that right now. So that whole little expedition was for nothing, basically. But I guess I could use it later, so it's no big deal. However, I finally got an iron pickaxe by putting the iron pickaxe head onto my old pickaxe. A lot of pickaxes in there. It was a big milestone. It finally meant I could mine a lot of extra ores that I hadn't been able to mine before, and my pickaxe would no longer break really, really quick. The next day, I basically spent the entire day finishing the smeltery, so I could melt down ores and make casts of things and make my own pickaxe heads. But other than that, day 53 was very simple. And then day 54, I wanted to go back to one of the mega villages so I could steal more tinker's bricks to make ours bigger, which I went and did. And then while I was running back, it started turning pitch black, which was terrifying. And then I got struck by lightning. And I don't know the chances of that. It didn't look like there were any mobs around that were making lightning. So it wasn't raining either. I have no clue how I got hit by lightning. But eventually I made it back in the pitch black. It wasn't a very fun experience. When I got back, I decided to go to the other village to get lava from their smith. I had to do a little whole balancing act on the way back because I couldn't hold both at the same time to prevent damage from both, since if you're not holding it, it hurts because it's hot lava, and that's what I needed the gloves from earlier for. I ended up making some stone in the smeltery so I could complete a quest. Other than that, the smelted stone couldn't do anything. On day 56, I tried to look at the ore thing again, was still confused, so I kind of gave up and just started mining around for the rest of the day, before remembering that the mountain had a lot on it, so I decided that I would go over there the next day with extra stuff. And that's what I did. I found a crap ton of coal, a little bit of like some types of metals, things I don't need to use for yet, lignite coal, which is weird. It was a whole expedition and it worked out very well. So I stayed there for the night, and then on day 58, I walked back to base, and one of the quests I completed that day gave us bamboo saplings. So I planted them, and they grew overnight, and we finally were able to turn in the last quest on the first page. So I finally had the entire first page done. Day 60 was basically me just cooking ores though, and prepping for another mining expedition, because I had found a cave near the house that I was going to explore. And that was basically it for that day. It was all prep, torches, some food, you know the drill. So on day 61, I officially went down to those mines that I saw right outside the house. I found this like weird box and was looking for a way into it, and eventually I did find a way into it, and it was Simon Says, not Simon Says, whatever you call the, like, it gives you like a color, and you repeat that, and then it keeps adding colors on, or letters or numbers, I don't know, and you have to keep repeating it. It's like top, bottom, then you do top, bottom, and then it adds top, bottom, right, and then you have to do top, bottom, right, that thing. That's the kind of game it was. I spent the entire rest of the day, all the way until the next morning, doing this game. So it wasn't until day 62 where I had to basically stop playing it because I wasn't losing. I was like 3 in the morning my time, and I just had to give up on it because I was too tired to keep going on it. However, the loot in it was insanely good for its level. I ended up coming back down here later to pick it all up after I marked it, but it was good. It was a very nice little detour. I continued down in the mines that same day and found a huge iron chunk of magnetite. It's also iron, and then mined it all out and went back up to obviously smelt it and see what I could do with it. The next day was spent looking at quests. That's all I have written down for that day. So that's all day 63 was, I guess, was me looking at quests. Day 64 though, I made new tools and changed my basic crafting table to a tinker's crafting table, which basically means if I put something in it and leave, it doesn't throw it all out at once or put it back in inventory. It stays in the crafting table, which is such a nice quality of life. Especially if you're playing solo, because if you're playing multiplayer, it means you can't craft on the same bench. However, here, it's just nice and simple. It means I can continue recipes after I have to get something out of a chest. I ended up getting these little things called ore berries from a quest, so I ended up needing to make a room for them in our house. It needed to be a dark room because they're ore, so they need to grow in the dark. And I ended up hollowing out a little room for them and, playing them down. Just a nice little cozy room for the ore. And that's what day 65 was spent doing. Day 66 was spent in its entirety making tofu. It wasn't hard. It was another one of those stay by the water quests, like the mud armor from earlier. So I just had to sit there and grab water, make wet tofu, then make stiff tofu with hammers so I could turn it in for the Hunger Axe quest I was talking about way earlier on. Day 67 was just another day of menial stuff. I made leather armor for a quest, and then made some food so I could go back into the mines the next day. It was just another prep day other than that first little bit with the quests. So the next day I went back into the mines again, this time wanting even more iron than I came out with last time. I was trying to make iron chests so I could have a good storage upgrade, so that's what I went down here for. I ended up dying to Wither, which wasn't awesome to say the least, but I went back and got my stuff. I did get enough iron to make iron chests though, so the next day that's what I did. The crafting recipe was a little odd. It took me quite a bit to scrounge around my chest and see where all the iron was spread out and hidden to actually make them, and it literally took all of my iron, but it was worth it even though it took the entire day to do it. Day 70 was also another storage solution. I realized that backpacks were in the mod, and who doesn't like a backpack in Minecraft? So that's what I wanted to work for, and as I started to work towards it, I realized, holy crap, this takes a lot of leather. It takes 5 leather to make 1 tanned leather, and you needed 5 tanned leather for 1 bag. So that was going to be my little objective for the next few days. Day 71 continued the backpack chronicles when I went to go out and look for more leather for the backpack. I ended up getting wood while I was out so I could make charcoal for torches later, and then found another one of those weird game thingies hiding under the ground while I was looking around, and I shouldn't have seen it because it was only showing on the minimap for some reason. Day 72 was spent mostly waiting for the leather to dry so I could actually make the backpack. I just looked at quests while I waited and messed the smeltery, and then at some point I slept through the night because I wanted to see if it would speed up like the drying process. It didn't. However, the next day I was able to make the backpack after not too long due to the leather finally finished drying, which was a nice milestone. After that though, I went mining again to look for copper this time. I didn't find any copper, but I did find another dungeon and a cave beehive, which is kind of weird. I don't think bees can live in cave. Oh my god! So on day 74, when I came back up, I had no copper, and I decided I'd go investigate somewhere else to see if I could find any in any chests in a little dungeon area. So it was time to prep for that adventure. I would need food and other things, so I started working on that. However, though, we had a little visitor in the smeltery in the form of a spider, and then I started hollowing out the sacred tree so I could keep it for aesthetics, maybe make a treehouse at some point while still getting wood from it and making sure it's not a waste. The next day I went out and killed pigs for pork sandwiches to get more food for the dungeon run I was planning on, and then once I'd made the sandwiches, I went and grabbed my bed and then started running over to the dungeon so that I could set my spawn there whenever I probably eventually died there. When I went down to the dungeon after setting my spawn, I found a few chests, found a cave, and then this weird redstone contraption. I didn't really know what it did. I turned it on and made some noise, but that was about it. So I just continued forward and went even further down to find a secret room with a brewing stand and a enchanted potato called a hot potato with all sorts of stats on it. Took them all with me, of course. Then I decided it would be a great idea to spend the entire rest of the night trying to break a spawner to see what they would give me. It takes forever to break it, actually. It took multiple attempts as I kept getting knocked out of the mining process before I eventually just started hugging it. When I broke it, it literally gave me nothing other than a broken spawner, so it was a complete waste of time. It was awesome. I ran into this weird ninja skeleton that could disguise themselves as blocks. That was pretty cool, actually. And then I had a very big realization. For the first time ever for me, I think I'm basically wearing almost full chainmail. I've never ever found it. I eventually got dead-ended by there being just too many enemies all at once, so I just started making my way back up while grabbing chests along the way so I could have more storage back at the base. So after I'd gone back up and slept, I just started making my way back to the base, where I obviously put my bed back down, waited for it to turn night, and then slept to reset my spawn back at base after doing a few quests while I waited. And then before day 79, I went ahead and, for the first time in this playthrough, used the power of the internet to figure out how ore veins work, because I really needed to know how it actually works, and that's what I did. So basically, the easiest way to explain it is that every 3x3 chunk area has a set ore vein area, and the way you can find it the easiest way is to find the blue pillar that marks the very center of all three using the like GregTech ore vein chunk shower thing, and then just mine down at that, and you'll probably at some point run into the ore. I didn't know if there was a more consistent way to do it, but that's what the people online said, and it was super consistent and simplified it a lot more. Like I said earlier, I feel like the quest book description is way more complicated than it needs to be. So I immediately put it to the test then and found a diamond vein right below the house. I didn't know how useful diamonds are going to be yet. I wasn't really at a point where I could use them, but it was kind of crazy what was around and under the base. We had 2 spawners and diamonds, and those are usually pretty rare. Oh, and I also got aluminum brass made in the smeltery so I can cast things later and make my own sort of pickaxe heads and whatnot. On day 80, I started carving out the tree again for more torches so that I could use my new mining strategy to finally look for copper. I planted some slime saplings. The house at this point was almost completely overtaken by blueberries. It was just a nice little look on the house, kind of really being overtaken by nature. And then I found some soapstone. Shout out to Soleil. And that was basically all of day 80. Day 81 through 85 were basically all spent mining out the chunks around the house, looking for a copper vein of ore. I did find an iron vein and had a crap ton of iron from it. And then I decided I wanted to finally make a pickaxe head cast, so I went ahead and did that and made a steel pickaxe head, which I would quickly regret because I did not have the steel to upgrade it, so I had to switch it back to another pickaxe head later. However, on day 75, I finally struck copper, which meant we could finally continue on our quest lines. Finally! Oh my god! It's been like 20 days! I mean like 10 since I actually found out how to mine, but oh my god. On day 86, I started working on more quests, since we could now actually progress them. I was also thinking about making another coke oven so I could get more charcoal. And I turned my pickaxe head to bronze on this day using the copper I got to make bronze, so I could actually repair it instead of using the steel pickaxe. Day 87 was much the same. I was basically, once again, just looking around at quests to do. It started to get a little overwhelming now that I was actually able to do all of them. So I went out and did an easy one the next day where I basically just had to get a dispenser, and it told me what structure to go look for it in, and I knew where one was, so I went ahead and went over there and grabbed the dispenser. Around this time I also started thinking it was time we got a house upgrade. So I started grabbing some resources on the way back and had a little run-in with a concussion creeper on the way back. Day 89 was spent looking through the quest book and doing easy quests, like this one where I just had to make a door, which I was able to just cheat by picking up our own door and claiming the quest reward. I don't even remember where I got this front door, but I know that I could not have made it looking at the crafting recipe, so that was weird. And then I saw this seared tank, XP tank thing that I could make, and I knew I'd wanted to work towards that the next day. And then I also saw a water tower that I could make, so I ended up going out on day 90 looking for rubber trees because it needed a rubber, and I'd rather bring the rubber back to base, obviously. So I went out and got rubber trees, came back with their saplings, and then started expanding out the dirt area around those trees that I planted way back to be able to plant the rubber trees, which I would do all night until the next morning. After expanding the dirt area, I decided it was time to start working on that little base extension I was talking about. So I started clearing stuff out, making room, and thinking of a nice spot to put it. I knew I wanted to expand it around the coke oven because I wanted more, and I wanted an area to put other multi-blocks in so they would have shelter and not, short circuit. Same with the machines. There was a little note that they would malfunction if they were caught outside in the weather and stuff, so I needed a building for them. I already knew that the building wouldn't be too nice looking. I didn't really have the time to spend to go get a whole bunch of nice materials for it, so I kind of just relied on cobble for this build. This would last from day 91 to day 95. I was basically just going with what felt right the entire time. I didn't have a set plan. I was just placing things down, clearing things out, terraforming the area around it, and going, I like that or I don't like that, changing it, adding, getting rid of things, just the normal building process, And to be honest, I'm still not amazingly happy with it. It's basically just a big brick of cobblestone, but that's okay. It's modular, I guess. I can expand off of it. I can make it taller, which seems like it's going to be important for this mod pack. It was kind of weird having the house now be like an open concept, and it definitely made me feel a bit less safe, but it was okay. I haven't gotten attacked around the base in forever, basically, so I think I'd be fine having it be more open. And then the few days after the base was done, I spent building chests, drawers, metal chests like iron, gold, and copper, and started moving everything over. It took a lot longer than I thought it would to move things over, which kind of sucked because I wanted to start working on that water tower I was talking about not too long ago, but I wouldn't really get to that until day 99, where things started to wind down. Speaking of day 99, it was an interesting day. I ended up finding out that our base is basically on a slime chunk, another thing to add to this base being extremely lucky. I made a few other weapons, so I would have something after my weapon broke, and then I needed to do it for a quest, so that's mainly why I did it, really. I'm going to be eating my words from 2 seconds ago as I got attacked right before I made those weapons by a horse rider who was a little bit difficult to deal with. Oh, and this weird invisible chest at the end of the night. It's a whole sort of thing. And then on day 100, I started finally getting to making that water tower. The second I saw it, I knew exactly what I wanted to do with it. I wanted to make one of those old Western style water towers where they're like on stilts, or if you know this example, the one from Nibelheim in Final Fantasy VII. It ended up taking most of the day as I needed a crap ton of wood for it, and making the stilts, aka the fences, were really expensive, so it was basically down to the wire, and I didn't get it built until the very last bit at the end of the night. After that though, that was it. I was done. I took one long last gander at the world so far before I'd be taking a pretty decent break from it, and then went ahead and left. I had a lot of fun doing this, and there will be a part 2 at some point. I just don't know if it's going to stay in this 100 days format. I think that GregTech is too big of a pack, and there's too much that goes on in a day for me to really make these videos in a reasonable time without having to skip out on a bunch. And to actually see progress, I'm gonna need to be able to go much further and go through many more days while playing this without trying to drag the video length to like 3 hours per episode of this. I unfortunately realized that way too late into editing this, that this probably isn't the best medium for this mod pack, so I don't know what I'll change it to or how I'll edit the next episode, but it'll definitely be different unless people say otherwise and they like this version. Other than that, if you like this video, please like and subscribe. It'd really help me out, and thank you for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.